the November 4th, 2021 Pinehurst Planning and Zoning Board meeting. I'm Jeremy Hooper. I'll be chairing the meeting tonight. I'd like to point out that we do have 7 members of the board present, which represents a quorum, so we're able to conduct business tonight. We'll go ahead and let every member introduce themselves, starting on my right.
Paul Roberts.
Philip Shoemaker is here.
Julia Latham.
Matt Jones.
David Alzamora.
And Jack Farrell has an excused absent and will not be joining us this evening. I'd also like to introduce Alex Cameron and Darren Burrich, staff liaison to the board tonight. Welcome, everyone. I'd also like to remind everyone that the meeting is being video recorded, so please speak clearly and directly into your microphones. We'll be following the agenda as given in our packet tonight. If there are any public comments, I don't expect any, but if there are, please sign up at the rear of the room. And with the first order of business, we have the approval of minutes for the October 7th, 2021 meeting. Are there any additions, corrections, or modifications? None? Hearing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, so motion made by Sonia Rothstein, second by Matt Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the minutes from the October 7th, 2021 Planning and Zoning Board meeting are approved as written. So now we'll move directly into the new business where we're going to review the 2022 calendar meeting calendar, as well as other board organizational matters. Alex, do you have anything there?
So yes, obviously, there's no real applications before either board today, so took the opportunity to not just get to see one another again, but typically the last meeting of the year is the organizational meeting. Take the opportunity to go ahead and take care of that today. You see the 2022 draft meeting calendar in front of you. Typically what we do is, members take a look at it, make sure and see if you identify any issues with attendance or any conflicts with any major recognized holidays. Usually the July meeting, at least the past couple years, has kind of run right along with the July 4th holiday. Obviously this year it looks like, or next year it's scheduled to be around the 7th. So you can take a look at it. If everything looks in order, then Chair, you can open the floor up for a motion to adopt the 2022 meeting calendar. Second, and we can work on getting that posted. Also, for organizational matters, we're happy to state that you guys may be aware of the last council meeting. Jeremy is now officially the chair of the Planning and Zoning Board. So with his ascension to that position, we do need a first vice chair. So I'd like the board to have a consideration for that. Julia still and is set to stay as second vice chair. I'll put it. So it'd be a good opportunity for another member to kind of move up into that role, and we kind of work on succession with our current board. That's pretty much it.
Thanks, Alex. Let's go ahead and take a minute to look at the meeting calendar, which is the first Thursday of every month. I think some of us are already doing so. Does anybody see any conflicts or any concerns with the dates? I think they do fall relatively promising this year, coming after the 1st of January as well as the 4th. Anybody see any discussion there? All right, so can I get a motion to adopt the 2022 regular meeting calendar?
Okay, I'll make a motion to adopt 2022.
Seconded.
I apologize. Excuse me. I'll go ahead and announce. We have a motion by Sonia Rothstein to approve the 2022 regular meeting calendar, and we have a second by David Alzamora. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adopted for the meeting calendar for 2022. So let's go ahead and move forward and have a discussion on naming a first vice chair. Is there any interest of doing so? Or is there anybody that wants to be nominated?
For the sake of discussion, I'll let the board know that I'm sitting in the second chair. I'm there because I do not want to become the chair. If there's somebody who is feeling like down the road, that might be something that they'd be willing to take on, but want more time to get their feet wet, I'll be happy to take the first vice chair and have them take the second, and then we can switch out. But that's why I'm in the second seat.
Thanks for mentioning that, because I had kind of thrown it on Julia earlier to get her thoughts on that, and she brought up a good point, whether the future chair is sitting at this table and someone has an interest in that, and what seat would they prefer. I mean, obviously Julia has probably the most experience running a meeting of ours, but she is content on not taking over a chair seat for some reason.
Maybe we should do that by
So
seniority.
let's have a discussion.
Maybe it should be done by seniority instead of just throwing it out.
Okay,
Don't you
well,
think?
if that is
I don't know,
something that's of,
that's how we've always kind of done it on meetings and boards and stuff.
Another
like it.
item to consider too would be, attendance. We need to make sure if there's going to be a first vice chair, if at the drop of a hat that, Jeremy has an issue as chair, we need someone as first vice chair that we can really count on to be here.
Well, I'll also say, we haven't always for PNC or BOA done it by seniority. And part of that is because it makes no sense to move someone into a position of first vice chair if their time on our board ends in 3 months. It makes sense to, in my mind, it makes sense to give someone an opportunity to get experience, and then move into a position knowing that we're going to have at least a year or two with them at the helm, so we aren't constantly,
Continuity.
yeah,
Yes.
so we can have continuity. So that's another thing to factor in if we're thinking about experience, if we're thinking about seniority, if we're thinking about interest. There's that continuity in how long somebody has remaining on their time with us.
well put as well. So what other
Well,
discussion?
but how do you know how much time somebody has remaining? I mean, most of the time, everybody has a first term and a second term, so you can't really base it on that either. Because I don't think anybody's up in the next 3 months unless I'm mistaken.
I don't believe anyone's up in the next 3 months, but I don't think we can always count on that second term because we've seen that that hasn't always been the case with the way the council has rolled the dice.
I think that seniority is a good fail-safe. However, I do want to consider board dynamics and effectiveness and interest from that person. And if we went along the seniority thing, we would look to see who was appointed first. But I think kind of coupling our conversation from before the meeting, it really has to do with, is there an interest from another person? And if there is, or is there anybody that we feel that should be nominated? I think that's important. So if there's someone in someone's head here in a minute, Sonia, if you feel or if someone feels that first vice chair needs to be nominated, I think that's the point of our discussion now. And if we could come to that conclusion of who it would be, and I think we mentioned that Julia feels comfortable stepping up to the first chair as long as we put the second chair person, somebody who ultimately, would want to sit in the chair position. Or if we have someone in our minds today that we want to nominate to go ahead and take the first chair, I think that's where we're at. So whenever we feel comfortable or we feel that there's an interest, I'll accept the motion to put someone in the first chair. Discussion?
Fair to ask if anybody has interests and then, or is
Sure.
You just volunteer, Matt?
Yes, well, I was wondering why you're being so quiet down there,
But I
Paul.
don't want to just pick, one of you guys over
Raised
here,
your hand.
but,
And let me,
Careful.
the intent was I didn't know how much, of course, not really having too much discussion with the board. Doesn't have to be done today. I mean, we do have a pretty good representation of the board here. We're only missing one member, although that member, to my knowledge, Jeremy, I'm not sure if you know, has expressed interest in themselves or anyone else either. I mean, we certainly could take this up in the next month if we had to, but just throwing that out there.
Yes, I think it's fair to, and safe to say that if we want to discuss it and have, if we're more prepared to come with a motion, if we want to take it to that level, if no one's there.
Has Jack expressed interest to anybody?
You know, and I'll tell you, I'll take some responsibility for that, for not having discussion before this meeting, with everybody involved, mainly for some other reasons, but I didn't want to overthink this either.
No, I agree.
So do we need a couple Conjuring Jeopardy theme moment, or do we just
Let's
feel like
shelve
we
it.
want to move forward?
if nobody's,
Shelve
yeah,
it?
jumping
Okay.
up, maybe we wait.
All right, so I think if everybody feels comfortable, we'll just go ahead and shelve that to our business discussion in December if we have a meeting. Is staff okay with that?
Sure. The other matter that I neglected to mention at the beginning when we got into this part of the agenda item is too that yearly staff and our volunteers are to acknowledge the village's ethics policy, which was provided to you in the agenda and the packet. So in addition to that, with our own board rules of procedure, yearly you're to identify any organizations or otherwise memberships that you're part of or work life that may potentially be a conflict of interest. So if you guys have that, if you haven't already, sign it and provide the hard copy to Shannon. We'll keep it on file for you. We're going to try to get a little more systematic in how we do that. As I explained to Jeremy and staff, we do this yearly as part of our annual review, and we, to my knowledge, don't intend to start doing annual reviews necessarily with our appointed boards, but something we need to always be cognizant of is, too, there's statutory requirements and conflicts of interest and when you have applications before you. So it never hurts to be reminded of that.
And, not to, I think we've kind of moved on far as the shelving aspect. But am I able to make a motion on the first chair? Being the chairs that need to come from the board, probably needs to come from the board, right?
If there's anything precluding you from making a motion, but typically the chair
Since
just sort of
it's shelved.
facilitates.
So, yeah, just in all fairness, what I would like to do is let's go ahead and shelve it to the December meeting. Please feel free to reach out and have any discussion if anybody has any interest in it, number one. And then two, if there's anybody, please come in the December meeting with someone in mind who we can nominate for the first and possibly even the second. Fair enough, everybody? So to move forward, any questions back to Alex on the ethics policy or conflicts of interest there?
Question, down at the bottom for the conflicts of interest sheet, it says witnessed by, does that need to be notarized, or can we go ahead and sign that?
As clerk to the board, it doesn't have to be notarized.
Okay.
But she is here, and she is a notary.
Okay, great. So, just wondering if I needed to hold off on signing, or I can go
She,
ahead.
I mean, she's recently a notary, so maybe she just wants to use her stamp.
Hemp working.
Any other questions there? So if everybody would just take the time, preferably at this meeting at the end, to read through, sign, and turn in to Shannon or Alex, that they probably would appreciate it. Okay, on to the next subject. So everybody, I guess at this point, understands we have an empty seat on our board. I'll mention there is a candidate that has been interviewed, that is, it's okay to say that moving her forward to council recommendation next week. I'm pretty excited about the person as well as I think staff is. So it looks like we're going to be able to fill the position very soon. Last topic that I'll have under general business is I'd just like to go ahead and mention also the buffer ordinance has passed council, the last meeting that they had. I would just suggest that we all maybe take a look at possibly the last revision and maybe understand it a little bit, because I know it's changed quite a bit past its, as it has left us, I believe it's changed to a whole totally different ordinance possibly. It's gotten better.
Yes, better is subjective.
Well, but it's evolved, so I think since it's left us in a different state, I would just suggest hopefully that we all just take a few minutes to read through it and understand where we are, okay? What else do we have as far as general business from the board?
I'm sorry,
Really
just
quick, on that topic, Darren, would you mind, or would you guys mind sending us the most recent, just PDF? Okay.
glad to do that. Also, as far as matters that the board has recently acted on, the Hollycrest major subdivision is set to be on the council's agenda for next Tuesday as well. So if those of you, if you care to watch or witness and see how that public hearing is conducted and what, if any, action at that meeting that council takes on it. There's been largely no revisions or additions or other material since the Planning and Zoning Board meeting. I will say that myself and the village engineer did meet the applicant and the applicant's engineer about a week or week and a half afterward on site. You may recall some conversations about that existing pond there and about a overflow pipe. We were able to locate that after mulling around for a little while. And based on the location of that pipe and the elevation of that pond dam, which is a significant elevation, if that pond were to ever crest, we're all in a lot of trouble. So we felt even more confident after seeing that. And I've tried to follow up with the property owner because we've had a couple conversations with her afterwards. So that was one concern. I know that was raised at the meeting, and we've been able to identify that and think it's going to be no issue.
Can I just add one thing about going back to the buffer ordinance real quick? After it got passed on, last Tuesday night, we've had the chance to review a handful of plans coming in, and we're not seeing any conflicts. So the first one came in was actually from the Pineweld community, and there were no issues we didn't note any new issues with the application of the new ordinance. We're going to monitor that for 6 months, and we'll report back when we start to see any issues, but the first handful that we've done, it does not appear to be that difficult to implement.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is the developers are already accommodating, that they just happen to be doing that already, knowing how the buffer needs to be, or they're aware of the ordinance and you think are incorporating that?
I think some of them probably are, and I think others are sort of happy coincidences, maybe. But two, is to show that it's not as much of an imposition as it may have been feared to be. I think one term was used, maybe it's not as big a boogeyman as it was maybe made out to be. As Darren mentioned, the first application was within Pinewood, which obviously has its own other restrictions, and it far and above exceeded the ordinance. We've got, I think, 5 more new single-family applications in since yesterday or Tuesday. So obviously, our staff and Darren and I are really trying to take the time to go through these and make sure we're working on a communication blast to at least the list that we have, and some more information that we can provide to surveyors and builders too, to try to educate them as much. We're going to hopefully have a builders workshop soon to also discuss the electronic permitting, which you guys recall back in July, you held a public hearing on. Council also adopted that at their last meeting with the delayed effective date of the first of the year. So we're trying to, use the opportunity to educate everyone on the process.
So the surveys that are coming in, I mean, does it actually do the, do the criteria or the math? Where they're counting or marking trees based upon, the criteria that have been established?
The location and the size of the existing trees are obviously marked right now. You can tell the applications that came in aren't quite fully aware of some of the breakdown. So right now, staff's kind of doing that. We're sitting down, we're getting our color markers out, we're defining the buffer yards, we're seeing where they're located, what the sizes are, doing the dimensions ourselves. When we get that communication out, we'll hopefully be able to have the ones who are doing surveys, and meaning that they're receiving credit for the existing vegetation, where they can break it down a little bit, so it makes their end, it goes smoother on their end and quicker on staff's end when we get the application.
I actually think the Pineweld one, we were able to, there was a 16-inch tree in the front, so we're able to give them credit for 2. They had to, they were either going to have to plant one additional tree or retain another one somewhere in that front of the lot. Then that didn't seem like it was going to be an issue.
So when you pull your permit, that, there's an example, or, I mean, today, if I would pull a permit, it's easy to understand what the requirement is.
Working on that.
Okay. Thanks.
Question on the new board member, is it possible for us to know more about the person in advance, just their experience? Or?
Yeah, we'll gladly share that information next week, yeah. And as of now, there's no application that's going to be before Planning and Zoning Board next month, so.
I was going to ask, anything in the short horizon there for December?
Not the short, there might be something in the long horizon, but nothing immediate.
So if you want to do this in December, I understand, I think, but can you maybe expand for us what you foresee for this board in 2022 and some of the things that we may want to accomplish?
Small area plans, I know Darren and I and other staff have had a meeting on sort of the latest draft that we have to try to get some comments back. So that implementation of what some of those plans called for, the form-based codes, other changes that we need to make to either the zoning ordinance or the map to in order to carry out those plans. I think that's going to be the first big item that the board, we want to get your feedback on and get to work on.
Well, I think we also have a number of OFIs in the strategic operating plan. One of them is an IAP, which we've been trying to get an overhaul of the PDO. So, we want to get that done. The other thing that we're working on, as well as an OFI, is we'd like to start working on coming up with a plan for Highway 211 Focus Area 5, something similar to like a small area plan, but not to that level, kind of coming up with a plan for that area. So that's something we want to accomplish yet in this fiscal year. With everything that we've been doing, we just haven't been able to turn our attention to that yet. That will be next and PDO.
Thank you. Any other questions or thoughts, discussions, anything anybody feels that they want to have a conversation about?
Did everybody do the State of the Village? State of the Village meeting?
Either attend or watch the video.
And signed it, and
I came in person, and I will say the pizza did not show up. So I've got a bone to pick.
Well,
You stay to the end?
for our end, it showed up, but it didn't last long.
What else? So I'm going to assume we don't have any public comments tonight, but just go ahead and throw that out here as an opportunity. So we'll go ahead and just mention that our next meeting date is going to be on 12/2/21, and with nothing on the horizon, I'm going to assume that we're going to have a meeting. Is that right? Is that in the plans currently?
It sounds like we've kind of tabled the discussion for first or second vice chair, how things shake out. So other than that, that
and
should,
the new board member.
if things go well, yeah, it'd be great to, if we have someone to be able to introduce them to everybody.
That'd be a good way to end the year for us also, as well. Okay. So with all of that said, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion to adjourn the regular planning board meeting.
Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Philip Shoemaker to adjourn the regular meeting and a second by Matt Jones. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, we are adjourned.